one of the reasons I'm here is we have seen an uptick in crime in our neighborhood, specifically over the past, say, 4 years or so. So when you say crime is actually down, that's not what we're seeing.
No, I'm saying that crime is slightly up.
Oh,
It's been down for a long time.
It seems to be, well, at least we're experiencing a greater increase than what you described. That said, looking at what's happening in the city of Scottsdale in terms of condo and apartment development, we know that with increased density comes increased crime. And so my question is twofold. Number one, does the city have a plan on how to address this? Because you yourself just said you were understaffed, as many cities are.
Did I say understand?
Well, you did allude to that with regard to the entertainment district.
No, okay. I'll clarify that real quick. I didn't say I was understaffed. I said that considering the number of officers I have down there, it's pretty impressive when you think I may have a small number of officers and there's 10,000 revelers in the street. That was my point. Not that we're understaffed, no.
Okay,
but I also said we upstaff the entertainment district during the entertainment district. We don't just have the beat officers there. We do put additional officers in there for, again, visual safety as well as the ability to react to anything.
So,
please go ahead.
As a city, are we anticipating a plan in terms of how to manage the police or crime increase, which will inevitably happen, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's, has already started to happen? Are we going to address that?
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
So here's what I'm seeing when I look national trends and try to bring them back home again. The city of Scottsdale, for the most part, the kinds of people that we're going to attract into our neighborhoods, unless we start building neighborhoods that are focused on folks that need housing and can't afford housing. Right now, the kinds of people we're attracting are not the kinds of people that are going to create, I think, problems for us. I think they might be the kinds of people that may be victims of property crimes, perhaps, or thefts from their automobiles, or they leave their doors unlocked. People may go in their houses and take things. I think, so you have a potential for that. I think the issue for us as a city is traffic. So let me tell you what we do, so you'll have a clear understanding. So what I do every year is I look at the amount of work there is to do in the city based upon how much work we've had over the course of the year. And we have a formula. We actually have software. It's actually called Corona Solutions. It sounds like 4 guys and a beer, but it's actually software. And we use that software. We put that information into our computer every year at budget time, and it spits out how many officers we need to do the work that's there to be done. Okay. And that's patrol, that's not all units. So I only want the number of officers, and you as citizens only want the number of officers we need to have to do the work that needs to be done. To hire additional officers that are bored with nothing to do is not healthy for any of us, because first of all, they'll do one of two things. Not because they're vindictive or nasty, but because they're bored. They'll declare war on the neighborhoods. They'll write every violation they see. They want to work. They're not lazy people. And so they'll start going around writing their left wheels to curb, which is parking on the wrong side of the street, enforcing laws that you don't necessarily want enforced because they just need something to do. They're bored. Right. And then the other thing they do is they park like this and they talk smack about me and the morale goes in the toilet. And I don't want that either. So my point to you is we watch crime, we watch progression of crime, and we watch workload to determine how many officers we need. Now, we are a city of major events. So when we get into the major event season, I need more officers, or I start spending overtime to have officers working, or I borrow officers from neighboring jurisdictions to help us staff those events. But to hire officers for us to have all those events covered, they'd be bored in the summertime, and that's not a good use of your taxpayer dollars. When it comes to crime, on a weekly basis, we have a meeting called Crime Trends. And when we see trends, we talk about how we're going to attack those trends. For example, at one time, I'm guessing it's several years ago now, time goes by so fast for me. Several years ago, we had a large number of smash and grab burglaries in this community. Mm-hmm. These guys and gals were breaking doors, going in, stealing anything they could grab, and hitting and beating feet. And when we looked at those trends, we literally made some changes. Now, what we did do was we flooded the area with officers on bicycles, walking the alleyways. We made 60 arrests in a pretty quick order, and that crime trend ended. So what I'm telling you is we're paying attention, and we'll put the resources together on those trends. But we had a conversation earlier before you came in, sometimes your neighbors don't tell us. You know, so I found my door unlocked and they didn't call the police. Nothing was stolen, they didn't call us. And so you may be talking to your neighbors, they may be telling you this is happening, but you're not telling us, and if you don't tell us, we don't know. And so I encourage you to keep us informed.
That's my point, is we are telling you. And
Okay.
briefly, I'd like to circle back to
Okay, go
just
ahead.
the whole multifamily thing, and I have no problem with who those people are and all of that, but
Yeah.
statistically, it's shown that in areas where they actually increase multifamily property, crime rates go up, and I didn't bring those statistics with me, but
Not
that's
been
why I
true
asked
in the
it,
city.
and I'll provide them at a later date.
This is a very different city. It's not been true in the city. I'm telling you, today it's not true.
I
Tomorrow
hope
might
it's
be.
not, I hope it's not, I'm
Yeah.
just curious if we had a plan, so you answered my question, and that answer is no. The second
No,
thing.
the answer to your question is if crime goes up and I have more workload, I would ask for more police officers,
Okay.
or I
Well-
would make a plan to deal with that issue.
Well, the reason one of the reasons obviously I decided to get active is because we are seeing an increase, and we do let you know, I mean, police come down to our area, so we've seen car theft, we've seen, well, just the other day, a burglary right across the street. Just pretty much all property crimes.
Okay, yeah.
The challenge I'm seeing in my area, and I don't wanna be the guy to stand up and say, well, I don't see police here, but the fact is, I really feel, and it seems to me that an obvious conclusion is that it's lack of a police presence in our specific neighborhood.
Okay.
And I will tell you that I work from home, I spend a lot of time at home, where I can probably think of maybe one time in the past 18 months I've even seen a cruiser go in our neighborhood or our street, and I was compelled to ask him if he was lost, because, we've just never even seen him there.
Okay.
And again, we've seen an increase, but we don't see a police presence. My understanding in dealing with the police department over the past few years is that based on the reporting that you get, that's when you increase your presence, but we haven't yet to see that, which is why I just obviously drew the conclusion that you were understaffed with regard to
Okay.
your place.
So then I'll get to staffing in just a second, because we do have some staffing challenges. Let me finish. So I had suggested before you came in that we have Commander Nichols, who's the district commander down here, come before this group and actually talk about that. He'd be much more in tune with what exactly, I have a whole city.
Sure.
Commander Nichols would be much more in tune in terms of what's going on. Prior to this meeting, I called Commander Nichols and asked him what trends he was seeing, and he didn't have anything to share with me.
So we would speak with him because he's in charge of our precinct.
Yeah, but I really do think you should have a conversation with him, because
Okay.
my information was there wasn't some of that going on.
Okay.
So there's either a miscommunication, or certainly there could be a perception, and rightfully so and understandably so, a perception that you are experiencing a high number of crimes in your area, and we're either not hearing about it, we're not seeing it, or we're not. Or
Yeah, the police have been called, I mean, that's really when.
Well, police get called all the time, but saying
it is
high
being-
crime.
It is being reported.
Okay.
The other issue is, of course, traffic, and I don't want to monopolize the meeting, but as long as I mop off the girl, I'll address both issues.
It's okay.
It was about maybe 4 years ago, we do have issues where specifically, and people do like to cut, there's construction, but they like to use that as a thoroughfare. I mean, they come speeding by, we've tried a number of times, it took a while to get the police department out to do anything about it. We did have one posting of a traffic officer there, that lasted for a day, but that was something, we're happy to see that.
Okay.
And then we finally got I'm not sure what it's called, but, the sign that says how, speed alert type thing, where you tell.
The signboard.
Yeah,
Speed board, okay.
The problem is that, that was deployed during the 4th of July weekend, and which there was no traffic at all, and the report from Phoenix PD was saying, well, we've only had, 35 people that were going X number over the speed limit.
You said Phoenix PD?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay.
My wife works for the
I
city
am
of
paying
Phoenix.
attention to what you're telling me, okay.
And she actually used to work for Phoenix PD.
Okay,
so
all right, no
that's-
problem.
It came out.
It was us, right?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was you, yes.
Okay, all right.
So we did tell them, look, it's, told you guys that actually that really wasn't the best time to do it, and we are complainers, we just simply aren't, people are gonna be the thing, but obviously it's the first time you've seen me. But it really seemed like after, especially even before that, it was really like pulling teeth to get the department to address the issue. To the point to where it wasn't complacency, it was almost active avoidance. And I mean, it was frustrating. And, after that, saying, look, this really happens more during the school year. It really is a problem, and it really is dangerous. After that point, anybody refused to even put any speed alert out there or post on their officer, what have you.
So who'd you talk to?
oh gosh, I've gotta go back and check. my
But you
emails.
talked
I've
to
got
the
a string
police
of
officer, he
emails.
refused to put anything out?
Well, yeah, they said they simply weren't gonna do anything else, and I've got a string of emails, which I guess.
Well, then
I
share
should
that
have
with
done,
me,
so
because I can't
will.
imagine any of my people telling you we're not doing anything else.
Well,
for
yeah,
you.
that's, my wife
So-
and I both addressed the situation because there was so much communication going back and forth.
Okay.
It took both of us, you know, we have to make
Okay.
a living as well.
Share that with
so,
me.
Yeah, I would like to do that. So anyways, those are the two that she's tracking. Of course, crime seems to be going up in the area. So, you know, I'd like to see an increased presence, you know.
Okay.
I wanted to really find out if there was an issue with staffing, because again, I believe it's because of a lack of presence in our neighborhood. And I can't believe that we're necessarily the only neighborhood experiencing that. So,
Okay,
two issues.
so my email address is pretty simple.
Okay.
It's A Rodbell,
How do you spell that, sir?
just A-R-O-D, B as in boy, E-L-L, at scottsdaleaz.gov. Send me that string of emails.
Does your neighborhood have a block watch up there?
You know, it did, and like, it's happened so much, it kind of dissolved. So my wife and I have decided that we were gonna take it up. Just this last burglary that happened 2 days ago, it really could have really ended badly for the family, since they have a young daughter who walked in directly after it happened, and it has to be done again. So we're gonna be heading that up, which.
When you do that, let Pima School know that you're starting a block watch up, because I know there's an interest in that neighborhood to do block watch more extensively than what.
Well, I also think that probably because there is an officer posted up at Pima, they seem to feel that maybe mentally that whole area is covered. It really doesn't matter, because things happen 2 streets down. And I understand that they're focusing on traffic and watching after the as kids as they
That's
should
the
be.
SRO that's there.
They do
I'm
a
sorry?
heck of
That's the SRO that's there, or there's an officer
Yeah.
stationed there? I don't know.
There's,
the-
I
It's
just,
the SRO.
That's the SRO.
Is it
okay.
SRO?
Yeah, so their duties at school.
well, they do park, I've noticed also too, is they'll park out on the street,
Okay.
visible for traffic.
That's good.
I avoid the area because it's slow traffic, and I always try to go the other way, so,
Okay.
but I'm not the guy that speaks for.
Yeah, okay.
So anyways, so I think that mentally, because there's a unit there, they might be thinking that the next quarter-mile surrounding radius
That's-
is protected, and it really isn't.
What they
Okay.
do over with
Okay.
us.
Send me that string of emails, I'd be
I will
curious
do
to
that.
see that. In the meantime, I do encourage you to have Commander Nichols here, because he'd be much more in tune with the detail of what's happening inside the district.
We'll
Would you
do that.
suggest that we would have him at our neighborhood block watch meeting? Because there was an officer who, was a very nice officer, I want to say.
Is it Travis Kirby? Travis Kirby? Yeah, Travis Kirby is his community relations individual, or community officer.
Okay.
And so he would be the person to be part of that, but Commander Nichols will make himself available to this group, or even to your group, if you just give him enough.
Rodbell, I have sort of a suggestion / question. Okay, the way we announced this meeting was on Nextdoor, the explosion of Facebook. And because this is no longer, let's say, the 40s and 50s, where it's like, if you lived next to Nancy, you guys would know each other, you'd borrow a cup of sugar, etc. You know she worked for newspaper, you were a police officer, you know, everyone knew each other. But as the times progressed, people became very insular. So in other words, you went to your job, you came home, maybe you knew your neighbors. But then the internet comes up and Nextdoor comes up. And I've noticed this in all the neighborhoods I can see, is that, and I've heard this from many of the police officers, is that people seem to be more free to share on Nextdoor or on a Facebook page or something else, but they don't do the next step. So what can Officer Kirby do, being he's a communications person, to sort of speak to this gentleman here and say, look, okay, if you think there's an increase in crime, and we can give the statistics, the biggest thing is to report, but let me sort of come to you on bended knee and say, look, you need to report to us, but we need to have like a relationship. So to build this relationship, we want to be more active. We want to have, like, you know, would you guys mind if you gave the officer, like, you know, $150 or something? It's like, he has a place to sit in the shade, he has a drink, he has a lunch, and it's like, come meet, you know, Officer X or something. You know, if you try doing something like that, because what I'm finding is that this age group here is used to something which sort of gone away. But there's a lot of people, especially the younger generation, where they communicate freely on the internet. But if it were to come to meet you or send you an email, it'd be like, well, I'm going to be talking to God himself, and, you know,
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, what is your method of improving that communication? Because I could tell you, if we had more of your officers, even the SROs, saying, you know, I'm stationed at Pima, I'm stationed at Tonley, I'm at Coronado, whatever else, and there's a way the city can get to the surrounding neighborhood saying, look, I'm your SRO, but here's Officer Kirby, and we're gonna have someone here which is gonna be talking about block watch and stuff like that, you can get more people involved. Because I can tell you, just on my block, it literally took an act of God to get people to show up at our neighborhood meetings just for block watch, because so many people are so disconnected and they don't know. You know, it's like, who is Chief Rodbell? It's like, well, he's the chief for the city of Scottsdale. Well, where is he at? And, you know, just giving someone, you know, go to the city of Scottsdale page doesn't do much. Your little blurb doesn't really do much. Okay. So it's like, you know, okay, can Officer Kirby then be a conduit? It's like, hey, we're gonna have this little fair at Pima and you get to meet this officer or something like that. Because I think the cities, if they engage that type of outreach, you would have not just the people who come to these meetings, but you have the greater community come and speak to it. Because it's like you're speaking about the entertainment bar, whatever, downtown district. If people got that clarity saying, well, our statistics don't show this, and there really isn't a defined district, we're talking about this, and people would say, oh, okay, I understand. There's a lot of data you guys use, like you mentioned, you have a computer system, but people don't know this. There's like the Wizard of Oz, you're the Grand Oz, and people don't know how to get to you. So it's very easy to go next door, and all of a sudden it sounds like your neighborhood's on fire because everyone's saying there's a crime, but no one engages the police. So.
Okay. There's a lot there, but the bottom line is that we're doing a lot of things we didn't do in the past. We're evolving, and we can do more. So we're starting to do I think it's tweets. I don't have Facebook. I in my position, the last thing I want is Facebook. But we as a department, we're starting to do more and more of that and putting things out. You're about to friend us, I guess, to get things on the Facebook. But we're starting to go into that area and develop our skill sets. We know that we need a bigger footprint with social media. Okay, but at the same time, you know, Travis's job is exactly as you described it. So we need to talk about what more can be done at that level, because where I'm talking from my seat and talking to the city, the district commanders, who I've always said the district commander is the police chief of his or her area, and they need to be doing it on their level. And so that's really where the concerns you have are going to be addressed. I can go back and direct them, you're going to do this, and they'll do it. But the issue is, I'd much rather than be in partnership with the community and come to the conclusion we need to do this together. And so everything you said is true. We can do a better job of it. I would tell you we're evolving. I learned how to text last year. Finally, I refused to write a long letter to a council member while I'm in DC with my thumb.
You can dictate. You can learn how to dictate into your phone.
Yeah. Well, no, I won't do that. And I'll tell you why I won't do that. I get those, and I'll show you 4 of them right now that say something I didn't say. My boss, Jim Thompson, said he wanted to kiss me once, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to kiss me. And so when you dictate in your phone, it has a tendency to say things that is not what you're saying, or guesses wrong names or misspellings. And so that is one thing I'm not getting into until the technology catches up to my accent. So the point I'm trying to make is, yes, you're absolutely right. That's very much what Travis's job is, as is the job of people who are like Travis in the other 4 districts. And clearly, my responsibility through my PIO's office is to do that at my level. And we started doing some of that. We can get better. We should get better. We need to get better. So
well, I think you're doing a good job. Just the fact you're here alone shows that you're addressing it. You don't see this in a lot of other communities. And to his point, really, it's incumbent upon the citizens themselves to get involved and to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And you can only do so much. Yeah. So, you know, I understand that you're doing the best you can, regardless of what, you know, complaints we do have, but.
There was an excellent event about 2 weeks ago that just started, and I don't know, Nancy, if you heard about it, but over at El Dorado Park, the Association of Realtors got together and held a neighborhood morning. And they set up booths, and they welcomed everybody, and it was an information and exchange, but there were other, the fire department was there, and
The PD was there too.
it was a lovely just being out and walking and talking with the various people out there. And that might hold something for, to do it more often with the Association of Realtors who work that area and understand your neighborhoods because they actually are selling and helping people come into your
Well, I was at the
neighborhood.
event, I'm actually a realtor, member of the Scottsdale Association.
Right, okay,
We work
so,
hard to do that.
and, but that was where the police could be invited and in a friendly kind of atmosphere,
Right.
and the Associated Realtors
Yeah, so
had
my understanding
stuff,
is
and
we
there were
were there.
games there for the kids to play, and,
And so we do many things, we do coffee with the cops. We do the coffee, I don't know about the shade tree and the $150, you got me, I don't know too sure what that was about. But yeah, you don't pay us to be
Incentive for
there,
your
and
officers.
there's no incentive for our officers, that's their job. But we do coffees, and we do advertise those, and people do come to those. But does everybody know about everything we're doing? Probably not. And can we do more? Certainly. So, some good suggestions, but we are doing those things, and we are becoming more aware of the importance of social media. I don't know, how many of you are on social media? I don't do social media, like I say, I don't, I feel awkward about it as the police
I
chief.
don't tweet.
I don't.
Tweeting is.
I just would like to suggest that anybody interested should take the Citizens Police Academy. Do you do it twice a year or just once?
Twice a year, in fact, it's going on tonight. Tonight they're down doing the shoot, don't shoot
Oh.
scenarios and the training down at the academy. But it's a free opportunity for people. It's 9 weeks now. It keeps changing. It's 9 weeks now. You get exposed to every aspect of the department, including decision-making, shooting, and if you don't want to participate in that, you don't have to. But you do communications, and you go to the mounted unit and the motorcycles, and you can certainly deal with some of the traffic concerns that you have. That's not the way to necessarily do it, but you can understand what the limitations might be if the issues are staffing. The bottom line is it really is a great opportunity for you all to see. I don't use the word transparency, because generally, the only people that say they're transparent aren't. So I don't use words like that. But I will tell you, there's nothing you can't find out about our department online. You want to know where the sex offenders are living, you can go online and see that. And as a realtor, they cringe at that because they're trying to sell a neighborhood and people bring that information up. And I just spoke to the realty group this morning, the leadership group this morning. That was how I started the day, talking to them. And we talked about partnering with them because they are the conduit. They're in the neighborhoods. They know if something looks a little out of place and a little different, and they know what houses are selling and why are they emptying that house out because that house isn't even on the market. They really are eyes and ears, and we want to make sure that we have those constant communications and partnerships. So they're great partners. My point is, there's that opportunity. There's also ride-alongs. If you've never done a ride-along, you can do a ride-along. You'll ride in your neighborhood and talk to the beat officer working in your neighborhood. We recommend that. If you want to go downtown and ride along, you got to get started later at night. I have to take a nap to stay up that late. But you can do a ride along downtown and see what the downtown looks like. It is a mass of humanity. They are partying. They are dressed that we'd be offended the way they're dressed. But I would suspect that our parents might have been offended the way we dressed or the music we listened to. And now it's elevator music, right? So my point to you is that, but see that, the department is wide open. At the Citizens Academy, you'll be exposed to the quality of the officers that police in this jurisdiction. We don't screen them. They volunteer to do it, they sign up and they do it. The depth of talent and professionalism in this city is amazing. That's why we don't necessarily see the issues in the new neighborhoods that are growing up, because one is the people are moving in, two is the fact that we don't tolerate much foolishness, and our citizens will call us. And when you've got those kinds of combinations, it's safe. As safe as safe can be, obviously, when you have massive humanity, occasionally people push each other and you have issues. So I'm not really concerned right now that that's going to drive the workload as much as other things, because there's a large number of people in the city will drive the workload. And if crime is going up as a result of that, we'll pretty much focus on those areas where that's occurring.
The statistics are that there's about 250 911 calls every day. So there's close to 100,000 911 calls in a year.
But not all of them are necessarily true emergencies.
Right.
So it's like they're all screaming help, huh?
312-5000.
Yeah, that is not emergency. But-
I'm using just strictly the 911. And I mean, out of that number, how many do you think are calls that you have to respond to?
we respond to all of them.
But I mean,
we respond to all of them if they're emergency calls. If we occasionally get a call that is not a police call, we refer it to some other department in the city. I mean, people do remember 911, they don't remember the 5,000 number, so we can refer it, but for the most part, if they're calling the police, we're coming. And if they call us back and say we don't need you anymore, we're still coming. I mean, because sometimes people have family fights and say, don't bother coming, it's like, well, we're still coming, and, you know, unless we can be convinced that we're no longer needed. So, yeah.
5,000 is a good number.
And some of them are also duplicates. You'll get duplicate calls, everybody has a cell phone now, so you'll get people calling 911, that's for the same incident. So it isn't necessarily that number of incidents, it's that number of phone calls. There was one other thing that I wanted to say about the Citizens Academy though. Anybody that's interested, you just go online, the website, Scottsdale PD, there's applications there, you fill it out. But we're finishing up this session, the next session will be starting, what month am I in?
You're in October.
I've been traveling so much, so I'm in October, so the next session will be after the first of the
March.
year, March.
October,
Yeah.
what month is this?
Yeah.
What do you guys do in October? Nancy will
Oktoberfest.
help you.
Halloween.
Neighborhood night out.
Oh, yes, yes. See, I'm from the DC area and we had a neighborhood, well, National Night Out, and it was always in, the summer, right? But here it's like, it ain't happening in the summer, so it's moved, so GAIN kind of throws me off too, because it's the second Tuesday in
Can you
August, I think,
explain it
back
since
east.
everybody wanted to know about more neighborhood participation?
Yeah, so those of you that want to participate, you just get out with the community. There's actually a lot of support from the city, but it may be past time because it's coming up pretty quick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like next week, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like, so it may be too late to get the support from the city because they'll actually give you all kinds of stuff that you can hand out. But you can literally open up decide you want to come out in the streets and party in the streets and have cookouts and bring food and whatever, and just invite the police. The police will come by, the fire department will come by. The biggest hit is the trash trucks. We compete with that. The kids love to operate the arm and push the trash in.
It's really effective because.
Yeah, but it's a great night to get to know your neighbors because to your point, we don't necessarily know our neighbors. Like I live on ranch property, our nearest neighbors are an acre or two away. I live in the city up north. We don't see each other except to wave at each other. We rarely get together because there's rattlesnakes in our yards. So, you know, it's like one of those things where we're not coming out after dark and walking around to talk to people. But National Night Out is an opportunity for you to get outside and talk to you. Or GAIN in Arizona, getting involved in neighborhoods in Arizona, GAIN, is actually a good way for you to get out and know your neighbors. And you have to wait for us to do it, but it's one of those days we call it.
When we did it a couple of years ago at the old Tonalea school site, we had candidates for council stop in, but the officers
Yeah.
that were on patrol stopped in.
Yeah, you'll get the officers there.
The
You'll get command
officer
staff
can see it.
stopping in. They've got to hit all of them, so sometimes it's hit or miss, but they'll get a list and they'll try to get to everybody. The officers will get out there, they'll show the kids the cars, turn the lights on. I mean, you just got to let them know that you're doing this. Because right now, if you did it tomorrow and said, we're going to do this, let's get together and do it, you have to notify somebody because you're not going to be on the list because the city's already got that list together. So you just have to call neighborhood resources and tell them, hey, we're going to do something.
Oh, yeah.
They
they'll
do
help
a
you.
good job on Channel 11 with Chris organized. Another question about the fraud
You got to
department.
turn off the camera. Questions. I'll be right with you, Sandy.
Okay.
Sandy first.
Oh,
then-
Sandy
then-
first, okay, go
The fraud department, are you seeing any additional work out of the fraud department?
Well, here's the thing
Since-
about fraud. Fraud are very, very complicated cases, and our fraud detectives are extremely busy, and fraud is a crime that we are concerned about because oftentimes the crime is being committed not in our city, but on our citizens from someplace across the world. In fact, the reason I went to Taiwan, you asked me about Taiwan, was I was invited to Taiwan by Taiwan officials at their expense, okay, to go to Taiwan for a conference, international conference on telecommunication fraud crimes. And what Taiwan would hope to achieve is they want to make inroads into the United States so that as they are investigating crimes that may be being committed by their people in Taiwan against American citizens in the city of Scottsdale, they would make contact with people and have open communications to help work that. The reality is it's a federal government issue, not a city of Scottsdale issue. But since you're inviting me out and paying for the trip, I thought I'd go out and find out what this was about. It was
Absolutely.
wonderful. We've got so much to learn about the dark web and crimes being committed in our city, on our citizens, drugs being brought in, human trafficking, all those issues that are on the dark web this is something that we just are learning about, because people can commit crimes from across the world and have impact on us, and we just don't have the capabilities of dealing with. And those are the frauds that are very concerning to us. The frauds where somebody writes checks or fraudulent checks or steals money from their businesses,
Embezzlement.
those are complicated, tough cases, and we're on top of those cases. But they're not the ones that necessarily concern me, because that's the white collar crime that we have limited victims and we deal with. The ones I'm concerned about are those crimes that unfortunately impact people severely and can wipe out their accounts and steal their identity and deal with human trafficking, and again, buy drugs in other countries, have them shipped here and sold on our streets. And that's what we're trying to combat. So here's the funny thing. So I'm on the Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Committee for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. As a result of being a committee member, I meet with the DEA officials from Washington twice a year. And twice a year we talk about, I get information all the time, but twice a year we meet in person and we talk about trends and things that are going on. And they brought to our attention the issue of the cyber crimes and cyber monies. We actually have an ATM here for bitcoins in the city. So you can actually deal with bitcoins, which you'll never have anything in your hand, but you'll have a wallet of which you can buy percentages of bitcoins on the market. Now you can do legitimate buys and sales with a Bitcoin, but because the Bitcoin isn't traced, there's an awful lot of illegal activity as a result of Bitcoins. And I've got officers that own Bitcoins because it's a great investment as long as it's riding a high, but it may crash one day, in which case you got nothing. But right now, we have an ATM in the city where you can actually deal with Bitcoin. It's down in this area. I can't tell you exactly where because I don't remember, but I know it's here. So I go to this conference, and at the conference I hear about this, and I come back to my staff, and I'm a little older than the rest of my staff, and I go, I want to start talking about how we're going to deal with the issues of the dark web. And they laughed at me, and they said, gee, come on, we're not going to stop crime from people in Cambodia. And I said, well, I'm not really interested in shutting down operations and cartels. I'm interested in what's happening in our city to make sure our citizens are not victimized. It won't be a violent victimization, but they're not victimized in terms of their financial situation. And so I found out, interesting enough, that I happen to have working for me, like the guy, he's assigned to the DEA task force, but he is like the national expert on this issue, and he works for us. And none of us knew it. And this guy's being sent around by the federal government to educate everybody else. And I said, well, isn't this good to know? So everybody was laughing at me. We brought him in, we said, we want training for our officers, so when they go into someone's house and they see a nonsensical series of words in a Lebanon order, that they recognize the fact that that is actually a Bitcoin dark web password. And so then when they see that, then the antenna go up and say, I may be into something here, because it's a dark web password. And so we're now starting to catch up to that. So to your point, fraud is a big issue. There's always going to be white collar crime, and we're well on top of that. We understand that it's complicated cases, it takes a long time, but we've got experts working on that inside our organization, detectives that know their business. And we bring cases for prosecution. The thing that concerns me, we're seeing an increase in, are the things we have to learn about, and that's the things that we're now presently starting to put some energy into.
When I took the academy in 2015, that's when they were first discovering the embezzlement at Greyhawk, which was like $1.5 million.
Yeah.
So I asked the fraud guy, well, hey, how you doing on that case? Oh, well, we can't talk about that. So it is now 3 years later, and it was finally divulged in the newspaper about that case. So I guess you were working on it for 3 years.
They're very complicated case. I will tell you that it isn't just us. I mean, we've got prosecutors' offices that have to work on those cases as well and prepare them for jury. And because they're so complicated, most average people they really can't comprehend all the detail and minutia that goes into explaining those cases. I'm not too sure I understand, because I've never worked those cases. And so those cases can be very difficult to prosecute because people have to understand that what they're listening to. So a lot of them are dealt with, prosecutions make arrangements and agreements, but they are incredibly complicated. Sometimes all you see is the tip of the iceberg when they start getting into that documents. We've lost a couple of really high-quality detectives to the banking industry. I mean, they get so good at this, the banking industry scoops them up and hires them, and they can make a lot more money working for banking industry than working for us. And so that's always a problem when you get these guys and gals so well educated in school that they're very marketable.
We'll do a meeting with them one night.
Sure, yeah, they'll come out and talk to you. Yeah.
They-
He's now deputy chief,
Yes, I know.
but he's in DC, he's in the National Academy of the FBI.
Okay,
He's away.
he's good, that's a good spot.
But
for
he
him.
was a district commander.
Yes, he
here.
was, and he helped us a tremendous amount, and so did your officers.
Good.
We spent better part of the day there
Right.
and exchanged information and got some people in the right.
Homeless that you're seeing out there aren't really homeless, they're entrepreneurs, I call them entrepreneurs. They're on the street corner, and they'll be on that street corner as long as they receive money on that street corner, that's their job. Their job is to get you to give them your money, and they're there every week, they're there every day. Interesting enough, they take off on holidays, I've seen them leave at 5 o'clock. Some of them have cars around the corner, they've got cell phones, they're smoking cigarettes, cigarettes cost a fortune today. They've got dogs that look like they're pretty healthy. They're entrepreneurs. And as long as you hand money out the window to them, they're going to be there. In fact, I think it's franchise operation at the 101 in Scottsdale Road. They've got wonderful signs, they tell wonderful sad stories. I almost gave to one because I thought this was a great sign. His sign said, victim of a really bad loan. I said, now that guy, I would give money to, because that's probably honest, because who hasn't been a victim of a bad loan? But they're entrepreneurs, and so I tell people publicly, I've told people at the Rotary Club, I tell people in public, don't give anybody money on the street corner. If you want to help homelessness, find the charity that best meets your values and beliefs, and give money to those charities and let them help the homeless. But giving money out to people on the street corner is not helping the situation. In fact, it's exacerbating. So you keep giving money, or people keep giving money, they're going to be there. So you want to solve that problem? Stop. I always say stop putting money out the vent window, and young people laugh at me because nobody knows what a vent window is. But stop giving money out the window. I literally had gone up to people on the street and said, hey, I'm identifying myself. Would you like some assistance? Do you need some help? I will get you help. I was in Desert Ridge shopping Christmas time last year. Young lady came up to me, I'm not in uniform, young lady came to me and said, I've got 2 small children, it's Christmas, I want to buy some gifts, can you help out? And I said, well, I can be better now. I said, I'm a police officer. I said, so I can get you some help if you really need help. She was gone. Not 30 yards down the walkway, another young lady came out and said, I have young children at home, it's Christmas, can you help? I said, stop. I said, there's a woman right over there that has the same story. She said, well, that's my sister. They don't look anything alike. I said, look, I'm a police officer. If you want help, I can get you assistance. We have crisis counselors that can help people that want assistance. They're just separating you for your money. If you give it to them, they're going to be there. It's economics. If they get no money in that corner, they're going to abandon that corner. So you got to tell people, stop giving money, find the charity that helps homelessness, and give to the charity.
Nursery that shut down,
Harper's.
there's people squatting there.
But somebody owns Harper's.
Yes, but there's
Yeah,
people
but they're not
squatting.
They need to tell us they don't want them there.
They don't know.
The whole building's gone now.
Contact
Yeah,
information.
Somebody owns Harper's property.
Yeah,
and
but-
At the
Are
value.
if they don't, I'll squat over there and I'll build something.
Yeah, they're squatting around there.
Yeah, so the police just can't go on private property and say you can't be here. So
I
the
understand that.
owners, so if you see these things and you know the owners, you reach out to the owners, and
I'll get
the
the
owners can
information.
let us know when we have
Let us
permission
know,
to
because
go.
these are things that are influxing into
Sure,
our neighbors'
I hear.
neighborhoods, and
Well, in your
that's why.
neighborhoods, everybody owns property in the neighborhood. And they're not, so they cannot be in your yard camping.
Okay.
There's certain things, so to your point, that is a great fear. Somewhere along the line, as a nation, we've got to figure out what a solution is to the issue, because it's getting worse and worse. I remember as a young man in grad school out in California, the street musicians in San Francisco, They weren't homeless, they were street musicians, they got their tips and they went about their business. But now you go to San Francisco and it's every corner,
It's
everywhere.
horrible.
As you say, underpasses and on highways, and it's just gotten completely out of control. And some places, they have literally had shadow governments developed in these huge encampments, and the police stay out of there, because they're fearful and can't do much anyway, until something tragic happens, and then it falls back on the police to clean it up. And then nothing good can come of that.
There are a multitude of reasons that it's a growing problem, like housing affordability. It's wonderful that we now have houses down here that we can sell and make some money off of, but they're being picked up by investors, and then they're rented out.
That's
The Airbnb, yeah.
Jim Heather, God bless him, passed away 2 years ago. They sold his home. Couple came in, they didn't even redo it, they painted the living room. They're renting it out through Airbnb for $8,000.
Do we have an ordinance?
Okay, stop.
This is-
If they're renting it for $8,000, they're not, a month or whatever it is, they're not getting homeless people.
But
No,
they're
I
still
mean,
getting
They're not renting
partiers.
it, it's not going for rent. I mean, there's just.
It's not going for low income.
Plus,
Okay, so it's an empty piece of property, so if somebody goes into an empty piece of property, then we can respond to somebody breaking into an empty piece of property.
okay, but in these places where they have rented it out legitimately,
Right,
you have a party there with maybe 20 people.
and I do understand that the whole
And
party deal that
Nancy,
the.
Yeah, I found out the other day that Jay Lawrence and Kavanaugh are working together at the state level to do something about Airbnbs. So,
Somebody
And-
needs
and I
to
can
do
answer-
somebody-
I can contribute to this, and that the reason we have that issue and won't go away until it changes at the state level is because the state of Arizona passed a law saying that no municipality can actually create a law that outlaws Airbnbs. So that's at the state level. Until that changes, it doesn't matter what Scottsdale or Phoenix or anybody else has.
Yeah, I know.
We're stuck
But
with it.
that's the kind of thing, though, because they do have the party, they don't clean up the property and they all leave.
So there's damage and other
So
issues.
you've
that
got
come up.
damaged
Yeah.
property,
The
you've
person
got,
that owns the
So,
property.
so one of the
ask for
experiences in
hugely
California
positive
is,
something.
as people start talking about legalization of marijuana,
yes.
is the fact that in any number of places in California, people have been renting these huge houses. They've been gutting them, rewiring them for all the heat that they need to grow the marijuana. And then they literally have destroyed gorgeous homes on the inside, outside looks normal, right? And then at the end of their lease, they just pick up and leave. And the
Yikes.
landlord comes back and sees that. The marijuana law that was being pushed by those advocates that wanted to legalize it, being written by the industry, where's the sanity in that? We're gonna let the industry write the law? Well, if we don't write a law that's reasonable, they're gonna write the law that's unreasonable. I, as a landlord, and I have a piece of property at Optima, they could be growing marijuana in the police chief's bathtub, and I could walk in and I couldn't stop it.
Nope.
The law did not let me say, you can't grow marijuana in my condo. And so, we need to start looking at all those laws and say, how do we protect our neighborhoods? Because they will rent your neighborhood, they will gut it out, they will put electrical wiring in that could cause any number of fire issues, heat up their plants, and when the lease is over, we'll just walk out the door, and the landlord's stuck with fixing everything. The landlord thought they were renting to a legitimate person, they don't know what's, they think this is a legitimate deal, so you do need protections, no doubt about it, but the marijuana legalization law didn't pass, but that was, what, 2 years ago now?
Yes.
Didn't pass, but the 16-year-olds that couldn't vote 2 years ago are 18 today.
Yeah.
And it was a narrow margin that it failed. And so what makes you think that eventually the 14-year-olds that are 16 this year, that are gonna be 18, aren't going to vote for this? So maybe we should start thinking about what a law looks like that we can live with, that actually regulates it to the
Yeah.
point where we control the THC content, where we don't make candy bars out of it, that we actually make it what it is,
Medicinal.
and tax it and regulate it. No, we're gonna let the marijuana industry write the law,
No.
and then we're gonna live with that.
How
And
do
that's
you-
exactly what happened. And the marijuana law that was written in Arizona, that was up for vote, was written with all the ideas about what went wrong for the industry in Denver. And here's all the things we should have put in the law that we didn't have in the law there. Let's bring it to Arizona, and we'll put it in the Arizona law. That's exactly what's happening.
my
How do you
brother's
have it
delighted
passed?
we passed it, he lives in Denver, he couldn't wait until all of those Arizona people got out of this city.
When I went to Denver, and it says, but it's a house that lives next door to a school, you can't stop
Well,
that.
that's where it gets
It's a
crazy.
house, but it's not a business, so you have
Yeah.
control over that.
But can you keep somebody from walking within a certain radius?
Probably the homeowner
Something
could,
about that.
I expect the homeowner could be on the curtilage of their property, on their property, but if they came off their property, it'd be a violation. I think that's how it would work. I'm guessing,
Can I
but
also
that's my
protect
best
my
guess.
airspace?
Go ahead.
We did our HOA bylaws recently, and the attorneys were very strong in recommending we control renters. And we controlled, and some of the homeowners have since complained, and the realtors are complaining. But we have a limit on the number of renters and specifications as to who can rent. Other than that, you must buy.
That's interesting. I don't know, HOA rules and state laws and city codes, when they come in conflict, I don't know which outrules the other in certain
And this
areas.
came
The
from
Arizona
HOA
statute.
Yeah.
attorneys.
Okay, so they say you can actually limit in your neighborhood the number of renters in your HOA. Okay, all right,
And we did it on a percentage basis.
okay. I think some of the high rises are doing that too. Optima got a little crazy. I've rent my property in Optima. I think at some point it got to the point where they realized, hey, we gotta control this a little bit. Well, it'll be an apartment rather than condos. So again, you got that advice, then I don't know enough about HOA law. I know HOAs are pretty powerful in Arizona. It sounds like they can do that, then
Yeah,
that's a
we've
way
had
to
several
control that.
homeowners.
How about Airbnbs? Do you have a rule that says how many of those can exist in your neighborhood, or not at all?
We own our streets,
Okay,
so they're private streets
Okay.
we own, so
Okay.
we could say you couldn't do that.
so you said you couldn't do that. That is in their bylaw.
Okay.
That's in the
Okay.
bylaws, because we have to repave them when they need to be repaved.
So, okay, that's great. I've only done our Airbnb one time. It was at the Denver wedding. My brother arranged it. It was creepy. The guy lived downstairs with his dog. He had a sign up saying there's no cameras on the second floor. And you tell me that means there's cameras on the second floor. It was creepy. I'm not an Airbnb guy. I'll go to a hotel.
Yeah.
But if you can limit that, great. But
I'm gonna wind this thing up now.
I want to ask one last question though,
Oh.
because you brought up the Airbnb. Think of, let's say Nancy, redoes Sandy's house because Sandy's moved to California and she's leaving the high life.
I stand you can
Yeah,
safe travel.
yeah, safe travels for Sandy. So Nancy then moves to Scotland and,
Where's she going? Actually, with to Scotland?
well, no, Nancy moved,
Oh, Nancy was in
yeah,
Scotland.
Nancy's in Scotland, so, we'll have some shady person who uses the Airbnb and they cause some sort of issue.
Okay.
So I'm the neighbor and I call up the non-emergency number saying, hey, something is happening.
Okay.
And this is, I'm sort of making it honest because this is my neighbors are telling me multiple times, is that the police officer will come out and being that they're not blocking, the right of way or something's
Yeah.
happening in the house.
Yeah.
The most they can say is, well, we need to get a hold of Nancy, but if Nancy's all the way in Scotland, by the time you get hold of Nancy, the Airbnb person's gone. So what good does it seem to, have for the neighbors report it?
So if the issue's a civil issue,
Yeah.
then it's like, we can't do much about that. So, but if it's a crime in our presence, or disorderly conduct, then we have some power to take some action. It just depends. Oftentimes, if the people skip out and don't pay Nancy, that's a civil issue. And so we're not gonna get involved. If the water's left on and the tap water's left on, is rolling in the street, Nancy's unavailable, we're gonna get the water turned off. I mean, and what have you. So it just depends on what it is. We don't have ultimate authority and power, and we're not going to manage her Airbnb. That's not our job. So our job is to make sure you're safe and people aren't violating the law. And so that's where we probably draw the line, or there's not a public safety hazard, or there's not the water's running and she's out of town and the grass is getting nice and green, but there's a problem there. We may need to come in and do
Code
something.
enforcement will be there because the grass is gonna
Yeah.
grow.
I mean, so it so much depends, but sometimes, police don't have ultimate power to take ultimate action because you've got people out next door that you don't wanna have next door.
So
It's unfortunate.
what would you suggest? I mean, because obviously the neighbors, they talk to me and they're getting irate because, you know, so-and-so's rented his a house, there's a party house, and, you know, they follow the process, and like you said, the police are,
We'll deal with the party if the party's creating a disturbance. After
Well-
that, we have no authority.
so who in the city could help? Is it, you know, did they say it's like,
Neighborhood
I think that's,
service.
I think that's
One.
what Mrs. Smith is suggesting, is there are people out there looking to kind of regulate that beyond just we respond to the current issue and deal with the current issue. And so I don't know what that proposal will look like. It won't be a law enforcement proposal. It'll be you can't do it and you just can't do it. So there'll be some action taken for finding for people who do it.
Neighborhood services would be where you would go
Yeah.
if there was that kind of a mess.
Well, if it's disorderly and it's happening and people are like, you know, doing
Yeah.
things that we're coming, I mean, we've got some responsibility to keep the peace.
Well, one thing, if you get up in your 3 minutes to talk in front of the council,
You have no experience at that, do you?
You gotta give her an
She
extra
got a big
bar.
honor last time she
Yeah.
did it. Lots of
Well,
big honors.
after all these years, I kept asking your council people, well, when people get up and speak, do you have anybody that follows up? Hell no. In other words, in order to get something done, you have to write a petition. And then they'll maybe
That's
work
so
on it or
And
not.
now, the only time I'm gonna disagree with you on this one is that when you speak, and I listen to what you're saying, and I'm at council, I will generally follow you out of the room, give you my business card, which I don't know, and say, I'll follow up on that. And I did that just the other day with Bobby Patterson. She was there, and I had actually never met Bobby. In 17 years I've been here, I mean, know of her. I follow her out, and I'm following up on her concerns. And so I know other department heads do that as well. As far as the council taking action, they can't take action on that, but they can ask the city manager to follow up on it, and then he turns around and tells us to follow up on it. So it isn't always ignored. Sometimes what people ask for, no one really cares about, and there is not gonna be any follow-up. And then you can deal with your elected officials who, you know, that's not their issue.
Yeah.
But petitions, you're right, but even the petition, they then decide whether they're going to bring the petition forward or not, and so it doesn't always come forward. But I will tell you, when you speak, I listen, and if it's something in with my bailiwick, we follow up on it, and so we don't, it isn't deaf ears, but it is a,
You
it
have
is
to
a process.
understand that John Barry is
Right.
protecting your back, so do you
Right.
think Chief Rodbell's not gonna listen to John Barry?
This is true.
John Barry, yeah, my buddy
Yeah.
John, but anyway, so the point is that, yeah, so there's a process, it's the process of the business of government that's been going on in the city forever, and other cities like us, and we're not the only ones that invented this. You get your 3 minutes to speak, it's not agendized, it can't be agendized, right? You can't
Correct.
speak to an agenda
Right.
item, you
Correct,
speak to the
right.
agenda item when the agenda item comes up,
Yeah.
and so that's the process, but people that are in the room, when you bring up a law enforcement issue, bring it to our attention and we follow up on it, I always have. I don't always
Well-
satisfy you, that is the difference. Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Okay, always a pleasure. At
It'll
this
be
group,
good.
I know it's been a different change up in the people in the room, although there's been some
I do
consistency
have
here too.
Well-
I always enjoy talking with you. I'll follow up on some of the things that were brought up, certainly. I, again, am not the person that's familiar with your individual neighborhoods, other than big, and I don't know of any big trends, but the district commander has that responsibility. Invite him here, he will come, and he'll talk specifically about what's happening in your community.
Next.
So you got two separate meetings, right, yeah, exactly. You got two separate meetings, you got one meeting from the global aspect of what's going on in the city and what our priorities are and how we're doing, and then you got the district commander for your individual issues.
When we had. the
But I
meeting-
asked, and he said there's no trend, so we need to find what the disconnect is. Is that it was too far reaching. I didn't care if people went, like, when you put out your sofas and chairs, people go around and actually collect that stuff, either to refurnish and sell or put in their secondhand
Yeah.
shop. I didn't care about that stuff. I cared about getting your personal information out of the trash
Yes.
can, right? And so I didn't write that part of the law, but I took my butt kicking because of that law. And this woman was responsible for that. And I just licked my wounds going, oh my God, Darlene showed up and just kicked my butt. That city manager was ticked.
Well, we're down to 4 now, and the people are renters and brand new owners. of our $10,000 houses that are $300,000 now. So when this truck came up, the neighbors around there were complaining. And so this other neighbor said, "Oh, we'll go to Darlene."
Yeah,
She knows how to do
And
that.
Darlene goes before the
She'll
call.
fix it, she'll
But,
fix it.